Hi, Sandra here. Welcome to Create in Spain. And as you might guess from this, I am going to be doing a box card today. Now, I have here some double-sided silver card. Unfortunately, I have made a bit of a mistake because I've not actually used this card before. I made the mistake of doing my score lines with a blade. And unfortunately, I forgot that it's going to do that on me, okay? So, not the best of things to do. Now, I had been intending to do this with a black card and I didn't have any black card left because I'd used the last of it with my friend Alison when she was visiting and I haven't got round to replacing it. I haven't been out since to replace it. So, ideally, if you have a card like this, what you would do is you would score it with a scoring tool or use one of these sorts of things to score it or an empty ballpoint pen. I cut it out in a bit of a hurry and I forgot to test that because some cards you can score with a knife and some you can't. And unfortunately, this is one that you can't very easily. So what I'm going to do to make the best of a bad situation, I'm going to have those nasty looking edges on there because the top of the card I want to look nice and you're not really going to spend too much time looking at these edges. You're going to be distracted from that. So I will fold it this way round instead. Now there's a lot of pieces to this card, but it isn't difficult to make. I'm actually putting lights in this one, and so you can possibly see on here I've got a couple of little holes which are in the file. If you don't want to put lights in, don't put lights in, you don't have to. Just ignore those holes and don't cut them. But if you are going to put lights in, then you need to put those holes in. Likewise with the struts, and there are two in this card because it's only a relatively small one, there is a hole for the centre here, for the string of lights to go through. Again, if you don't want to put lights in, leave that hole out and you can carry on as normal. Now regarding the lights, this is what I've used. It's part of a string of battery operated lights from a Christmas set. And all you need is a watch battery. The 2016, I think, is the model number on this. Yeah, CR2016. And the 2016 is a very thin battery. You can get a similar size battery, but it's thicker, and that's the 2032. But it's double the thickness. Fancy that. Okay, so test that your lights are going to work. Now, originally, when you first cut the string off, you might think that they are not going to work. But that's because if you're using one of these strings, which is basically copper wire, there's a coating on the wire and you need to remove it. All I do for that is I take a piece of foam and an emery board because I can't be bothered to go get my husband's sandpaper, and I sand the ends, just the very ends of the wires until they are shiny. So you need to test your battery and your lights and just check that they're working. Then when you know that they're all working, chop off the extra wire after the last light bulb, okay? And you can put it to one side then. You know that it's going to work when you put it together. So the rest of the bits and pieces for this are musically themed. And this is because this card is being made for a certain person who had better not be watching this video. Okay, so what I've got here as part of my decoration is a piece of white vinyl with a piece of black vinyl over the top. Now in the file which is included, you will find this file and it basically looks like that when you've cut it. Because what you need to do is to kiss cut the black vinyl so that it doesn't go through the white vinyl. And then when you've done that, you can, if you have done it correctly, and if you can find the edge to pick up. Okay, let's find the edge. Here we go. You can take off the black pieces that you don't want to make your keyboard. So these thin black pieces are the ones that you want, and you want to take off everything in between them. When you've done that, you may end up with a little bit of the black vinyl in between the keys to mark the difference of the keys here. If you don't, simply draw it in with a permanent marker, a very fine tipped permanent marker, and it will come out really, really nicely, looking like a keyboard. This can be quite satisfying doing this. When it comes to these two here, make sure you don't take off the wrong bit, because I'm told by someone who knows about these things, which I certainly don't, that there's sets of 3 keys and 2 keys on a keyboard. Yeah. Okay. I've had to be guided by someone who knows. I do not have a musical bone in my body, so I don't really understand these things. But it's a card made for a musically inclined friend, so it was important to get the detail right. To take that off there. Just 2 more pieces to come off of this one, and you'll be able to see what the keyboard looks like. And it actually does look quite realistic because you have the black on top of the white. It gives a little extra dimension rather than having it all flat. So there we have our piece of keyboard. Now these are going to go on the base around the outer edges. So there are 3 of them, and you put them wherever it is that you wish on these outer edges. Now I'm going to complete this off of camera because it'd be boring for you to watch, and stick them on. See you in a few minutes. Right, so I've now got all my musical keyboards on the base, and I'm not putting one on the back because I am leaving the back free to have a battery put on it, and also if you want to you can put a sentiment block on there. So that actually looks pretty smart when it's put together like so, and it really gives a very nice base, and I'm not putting any decoration on here apart from some gems later on. So we now need to make the card up, and to do that you want to make sure that you have it the right way round, obviously, and you want to make sure that you put these struts in first, and the reason to do that first is because it's a lot easier to put them on now than it is to put them on later. Now because this is a metallized card, I'm not going to use glue, which I would normally. I'm actually going to use double-sided tape because I think that will probably give me better adhesion more quickly. If I had time for this to dry, it might be a different matter, but for demonstration purposes it's definitely going to be quicker to do it this way rather than wait for different glues to dry. So I'm just going to put some double-sided tape on these pieces. Like so. Now I've kept the double-sided tape covered up. I haven't done anything else with it as yet. So when you fold it up, it's obviously going to go like so, with that flap on the inside. And so what you want to do is to start off on the opposite side to the closing side. So this one is the closing side, this one here. Sorry, went out of shot then, didn't I? So we want to start off by putting the struts on this side. And the way we do that is we make sure, and it's important if you've got a card which is only decorated on one side, that the front edge faces, or the decorated edge faces the front. So in this case, they need to go that way. If you've got your card folded so that it's round that side, then it needs to go on the other way, if you get my meaning. So you want to decide where you want to put your struts, and generally I try and make them so more or less equally spaced. And doing it this way means you can line it up with this edge here, and that means your struts will be nice and straight. So you can remove the double-sided tape on one side and stick it down. Okay. Decide where you want the next one, and I think I'm going to go for the next one round about there. Again, line it up with that edge. Remove the tape, or the tape covering I should say. Press it down. So now these two can lie flat, and what you need to do is to fold them over, remove the tape, have your other side of the base folded down. For some reason that's not quite straight, so press that down. And then this one will be folded over the top to actually close it. Okay, so what I need to do is to put some tape down here, take that tape off, and then close. If for whatever reason this overlaps these, that will go over the top, not underneath, okay? It will go over the top of that, so that whatever you do, that side is glued down. There we go. And now if we put our flaps down, we have our actual box base finished. So we can ignore that for the moment. What I want to do is to show you how I've done the sentiment. Now I cut out the sentiment letters, and it's just a happy birthday in this particular case, and I've cut them out of a silver glitter card. And I've got an offset here, and I've taken all the various holes out of the offset, so this is actually a solid piece. But if I put it up to the camera, I don't know if you can see that. If I tilt it, you might be able to see it. What I've done is I have basically scored all the letters into that base card. And the reason I did that is because this particular text, I have to lay down some individual letters. Some of them are joined and some of them are not, because that's the way the text is, because it is curved and so on. And I didn't want to change the way that it looked. But by doing this, I've got a guideline to where to put my letters. And so what I'm going to do is put my glue on here and then fill in my letters. And I'll come back when I've got that done. So as you can see, that's enabled me to get all my letters in the correct place. Now to do this in Sure Cut Slot, all you do is you simply cut the happy birthday bit in a much lighter pressure, something like 7 or 8, and then you cut the outside line in your normal heavier pressure to cut through the paper or the card, whatever it is that you're using. And I'm going to put this on the back of my card up here. You could, if you want to, put it on a front flap, but that's not where I want it to go. I want it to go relatively high up on the back of this card. And all I'm going to do is put some double-sided tape on the other side of here, and I'll have my sentiment on. And it's quite unusual for me to have my sentiment on before all the decoration goes on, but it's easier to put it on the back before everything else gets in front of it. So want to make sure it's as high as it can go and pretty much central. There we are. There. If you want to put it lower down, fine. Be aware that if you've got it high up like I have, you're going to need a bigger envelope to put it in. But if you want to put it down lower to get it into a smaller envelope, obviously you can. And the card will fold flat whichever way you put it. So we have our base card, we have our struts put in, we have our sentiment on. So let's get that out of the way and do a little bit of tidying up here. But the next bit, if you're doing this, is to put your lights in. If you're not putting lights in, you can fast forward through this bit until you get to the next. So all I'm going to do is to thread this through my holes from the front to the back is fine. If you want to do it from the back to the front, again, you can do it that way. It really doesn't make an awful lot of difference. But what you need to do is to position the first light And all I want to do with this first one, and make sure it's the one that doesn't have the wires sticking out of it, by the way, is I'm going to put it up so that it is slightly higher than the card base, and just take a little bit of sticky tape to put it in place. But if you've got that one piece stuck down, at least it will help you, because you can then thread through the other hole. I don't know if you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm trying to do what I'm doing and watch what's shown on the camera at the same time. It's not easy. Go through that hole. Go on. There we are. And so you can pull it through. We want 2 lights in this centre area. Now you want 1 wire through each hole. So if you do the bottom one first, and as it happens, I think I need to actually poke through with a pin because I didn't check that the hole was poked out. There we go. Hole's cut, but I hadn't poked the pieces out of it. So 1 through 1 hole. Yay. There we go. Now again, I want the very last light, this one here, to be slightly higher, not a lot, but slightly higher than the base of the card, so that you see more of the light. And preferably I want to have the bulb twisted so that it faces forwards. And so what I'm going to do is get another piece of sticky tape and stick that into position there. Once those two, the front one and the back one, are in position, you can mess around with bending the wires to get these lights where you want them. And indeed, it might change as you build the card up. All you need to do is make sure that the card can close, preferably without having a really sharp crease in the wire. Now, we need to test that it's still working. It probably is, but sometimes these things can be a little bit temperamental. And sometimes you'll find that maybe you didn't take enough of the coating off of the wires. So to test it out, we have our 2 wires at the back, and all I need to do is put the battery between them. And it has to be round a certain way, otherwise it won't work anyway. And there we go, my lights are coming on. So in this particular case, I'm going to have to put my battery up that way on the back of the card. Not a problem. So I'm going to use some double-sided tape to make my battery stick to the back of the card. And the only thing I forgot to cut when I was cutting this is the cover for the other wire. Now, when you're sticking the tape on for your battery, stick it underneath the wire. Do not stick it on top of the wire, underneath. And there we go. Then stick the wire down on top of that. You can curl it if you wish. That will be fine. It doesn't matter if it's straight or curled. If you've got a lot of wire there, you can curl it up a bit more. And then stick your battery down on the base and press firmly. Check that it's still going to work. Yeah, okay. And this one can just be left sticking out of the back for the time being. I'll show you what to do with that a bit later on. So now we're ready to actually decorate our card and put all the various elements in. Now for this, I have chosen some silver and some blue glitter card. Okay, and I've got it attached, I've got all the various bits attached to pieces of acetate. If you don't have any actual acetate, you can use document folders, you know those transparent folders you get for putting papers in. You can cut those up into strips. Or if you're really stuck, you can use a paper or a card that corresponds with your colour scheme, but preferably something transparent, because if you put other card in front of these lights, if you're using the lights, you're not going to get as much as you would if you were not using card. I've also got some little sort of, well, just almost flowery shapes, but they're not quite there. So like starbursts or whatever. I just thought they were fun. And I've got various musical shapes from, I think this is a double clef. And yeah, various notes and things to go in. Now what you want to do is to make sure that your smaller items, if you've got smaller ones, are going in the front and the bigger ones are going in the back, and obviously they are the highest. So you need to test where they're going to be, and I think that would be quite a nice height for the very back ones. So what I do is I just put it behind the strut that I intend to place it on, pinch it there, and then I know where I can put my double-sided tape. So then just get a piece of tape which is no wider than the strut, or no deeper than the strut I should say, and then peel that off, and I can trim the last of it off, and I can just slot it in where I want it to go, and in this case it's just here. So here we have the finished card, and I think you'll agree it looks pretty spectacular, and it looks even better when it's dark and it's lit up. So the only thing we have left to do is to sort out this battery connection here. Okay, so I've got my card covered with double-sided sticky tape. And what we need to do is carefully peel off the covering layer, like so, but do not throw it away. And what you want to do is to take your wire and place it so that it is over the sticky side. It's working. There we go, the lights came on. But I don't want to stick it down completely, so I'm going to just leave it like that for a second. I'm going to close my blind down, and then you'll be able to see what it looks like in the dark. There we go, our happy birthday musical card that glows in the dark. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments below. Please give it a try with the lights, because it really is spectacular when you've made it. And please, obviously, share if you've enjoyed it.